Hi there, this is Rob Baard. I just wanted to say a very big thank you to everyone out there who sent in their questions. We've narrowed it down to 11 for things about the Ninja universe and 11 things about me as well. So for the questions that didn't make it into the final cut, I'll email back everyone personally and answer their questions that they asked as well. So yeah, keep an eye out in your inbox and thank you very much. Where did the character Reeve come from? So the name Reeve came from obviously Christopher Reeve, who was a big role model in my life through films and things like that. And the actual character for the ninja kind of evolved through, I guess, heroes and things that I looked up to. So depending on where the character is at in his stage of development, he's kind of based on different characters. Question number 2. When will we see Reeve's true potential? In the next film. In episode 5, I think we'll see a lot more of what Reeve can actually do and where his ninja abilities have gone. I think the thing people are seeing and where this question may come from is that the ninja films are a progression and you're seeing the evolution and development of a character, especially in episode 3. In episode 3 we're really seeing Reeve for the first time at different stages in his development and where he's at, and you can see over the films the evolution that he's making as a character and in his abilities and everything there. And it's kind of mimicking my own real training and the things that I learn. It's interesting watching the different films and seeing where the level of understanding is at, where the level of movement is at, and all those types of things. So certainly it's been 3 years since The Immovable Heart and 6 years since The Prelude. It's always very interesting to go back and take a look at those films and see where the movement is at and the taijutsu, so to speak. Number 3, will more of Reeve's past and family be revealed? Everyone asked this question. I felt that in The Immovable Heart we kind of showed a lot about Reeve's past and how he met John Carpenter, but most people who sent in questions were asking about Reeve's past and his family and if we were going to journey more into that type of thing. I think inevitably we will. It is Reeve's story, it is his journey in evolution and in developing himself and in changing into who he becomes. So I think there's some interesting things coming up in episode 5 where we delve into why Reeve is who he is and how he got there, which will certainly cover some family topics and things like that. Question number 4. Will there be a true villain in the ninja universe? Or more villains? In episode 4 we got introduced to the Nightingale, and the Nightingale for me is intended to be a very big villain in the ninja universe, someone who can match Reeve. I think we haven't yet seen someone who has been a real threat for Reeve. And while we've had villains, we've had the Hungarian in the short films, we had the Torturer in the 3rd film, and in the 4th film the Nightingale starting to introduce. I think you're going to see a lot more ninjutsu elements and esoteric elements that come into it with the Nightingale, and the series was certainly heading in that direction towards the end of number 3 and into number 4. So yes, there is a main villain or a true villain, and at this stage I kind of see that that will be the Nightingale. But I like the idea of a rogues gallery. I like the idea that he has more villains. You know, like how your Batman has the Penguin, the Joker, the Riddler, Two-Face. I would envisage that Reeve has these other villains as well. We've seen Maverick and Cypress, the bald ninja and the smiling ninja is what they were originally referred to. They were in the 3rd film and the 4th film, the short film. They were actually in The Prelude and Infinite Ways as well. But sometimes when you're dealing with short films and lining people up and schedules and things like that, or even the final cut of a film, these types of things can go missing. So if I was to go back into the short films, there's certainly one element I would like to use the story threads that we had for those two characters in the continuity, so that you can see that they've kind of been following and tracking Reeve since the beginning of the series. They were in the very first draft of the very first Ninja film as well, in the feature film, which was a much bigger feature film with a lot more money. for the budget. They were in that draft there, and they were the two significant villains. So yeah, we have Nightingale, we have those two guys, we have the Torturer, who's always... the Torturer is an interesting character, and a lot of people loved the Torturer. So again, I would say that we're building on all of these characters, but I think you're going to find in the Nightingale is what the Joker is to Batman, I would imagine. Is the world of the ninja real or a fictional place? That came up a few times too. And interesting, I hadn't really put a great deal of thought into it. In my mind, the city was a real city set in a real place. Like, it could be New York, it could be LA, it could be anywhere. I kind of wanted it to be nameless in the way that it wasn't specifically a city. I just felt that the aim of the franchise was to make it worldwide and international, and if things were looking very Australian, then it would be grounded as Australia. If things were looking very American, then it would be grounded as American. I wanted it to something that kind of crossed cultures, so to speak, so that it could be any place really. In episode 3, we kind of see in the backstory shots of Paris and France and things like that. So the films should be a worldly scale. If I had the budget, it would be fantastic to see the ninja in different countries and missions going on across the globe and things like that. It's certainly something very Jason Bourne-like that I would love to explore with the films. So as in terms of fictional or real place, real place. Is there a specific ninjutsu theme for each film? There is, and in fact, it's kind of echoes my training and where I'm at the time. When we look at the Prelude, which was shot in 2010, the theme of that film was really about the fighting form becoming the no fighting form, and developing this into a way of who you are and an expression. And in that way it becomes art and you become the artist, in the way that film is an art form, and you're showing an expression of you. Martial arts is an art form, and again you build this solid foundation and this base, and then your creativity and who you are begins to come out and showcase through movement. When we get to Infinite Ways, the theme is Kion Hoppo. Kion Hoppo means infinite ways, and has many meanings. When you break the kanji down, you'll find some real magic in the meanings of Kion Hoppo, and in fact Soke Hatsumi will write Kion Hoppo in many different ways. And it's interesting, those types of ways always shift your perception on where you're at or what your understanding is, and when your understanding changes, your movement changes and your whole approach to things. So Infinite Ways was really about that. It was about the Kion Hoppo. The aim of that was to show as many foundations and movements from the Tenchi Jin. I was trying to show all of the Dokken Taijutsu, different types of locking methods and things like that. The idea to be free in the movement, and by the end of that short film, we start to look too at different elements in Infinite Ways, different themes of frequency and vibration and energy and things like that, which were all things that I was studying at that time as well. Film 3, The Ninja Immovable Heart, is obviously it's all theme, and probably too much theme. It was at a point where, at this time, in 2013, my training and understanding, I was taking in, absorbing, writing notes, everything as much as I could, and really going deep into the art. And one of the core lessons being Fudo Shin, the immovable heart. So that feature film is really full and rich with the wisdom quotes and understanding and things, because it is about perception, it is about belief and ego, and how we need to understand those things, control those things, master those things, so that to move to the next step of who we are. So a very, very deep theme-filled film, and the first feature film. If I went back, I would probably spread a lot more over the series of films, but at the time this was the shot, and this was the thing that people were enjoying about the films. Everyone was loving the wisdom elements of it, from the 2 short films, so incorporated as many of those as we could. Ninja Interlude starts to deal with that retsu, that kuji in a way, element of mastering space and time, and it starts to talk about the kukan and the void and how we are perceiving space and time and things like that. And in terms of expression and art there, that short film is probably the most out there to date in the whole series, that covers different topics. Might be parallels and strings theory and metaphysics and quantum physics and elements like that, which again for me are topics that are really investigating and searching out for myself during those times. In a way, a lot of the time the short films, all of the films in the series, as well as being where I'm at in that stage of who I am, they're kind of like a presentation or an assignment, and they're not intended to be, they just time out that way. But there are no coincidences, as they say. Easter eggs. Okay, cool. 440. Right. The car keychain and locations. Okay, yes, I'm with it. The time 440 does show up a lot. I'm fairly sure it shows up in some way in each film. It's certainly in the scripts of each film. I think in infinite ways, the room that Rachel, the character, was tied up and taken to, the room was 440. In the Prelude, it was the GT440 device. In the Immovable Heart, it was the GT440 device. And it was also synced with the time 440. There is frequency involved here, and the vibration frequency that things are resonating at, which 440 plays a part in, which become more evident in the next few films. 440 for me was also a time that I would always wake up at 4:40 in the morning for years and years and years. Randomly, I would just open my eyes, wake up, the clock would be 4:40. It was just like a significant time. So I like to incorporate as many of those things or Easter eggs in a way that I can, just to make the films that much more special and to make them deeper and richer and really bring this universe to life. The keychain in the Prelude, Reeve races to the car, gets in, turns the key, we see this little ninja keychain, which is symbolic for me because it is a keychain that my teacher gave to me when we first met and began training. It was a gift. So in a way it's a homage or a gift back to him to have that in the film. The locations are specific also. The main forest location we see in the flashbacks of the first short film, The Prelude, and where we see in the flashbacks of The Immovable Heart is the same location. It's a location that I take a lot of my students to. I did a lot of training there myself. It was not very far from where I used to live. Was ideal. It was a beautiful place for training. The grass, the rivers, the trees, everything like that. So wanting to incorporate again more of who I am and things that are special to me into the film. So that location's shown up a few times in the short films, and I'll try and use it again in the next few films and things like that. Another location in The Immovable Heart, there is a shed where we see a young Reeve training and punching a punch bag in, and there's a lot of deleted scenes about Reeve training and lifting weights in that shed. That shed is actually the shed of a friend of mine named Dennis, who taught me how to lift weights when I was 17, 18 years old, and took me under his wing, and yeah, trained me in weightlifting and bodybuilding and things like that. So an important mentor and friend to me in that way. And he'd been a supporter of me right from the beginnings. He was in some of the short films as well. He's in the feature film, and he was in another feature film that I made as well. So not only important to be able to involve people that are special to you like this, but these places that actually have meaning. That training montage and things is reminiscent of me all through growing up and all through high school, I would get up at 5:30 in the morning. I'd lift weights before school. I would be stretching. I'd be watching movies, Van Damme and Kickboxer and Bloodsport, all those movies that were out in the 80s, ninja movies, Terminator, Superman, Batman, you name it. And then I would go to school and I would come home and I would be on the punch bag and I'd be practicing my kicks or be going off to my martial arts classes and things like that. So to include that type of history, there's a deleted scene where we see that boy bullied trying to help another person, and then he goes home and begins training, making himself stronger. Maybe that'll show up in one of the next films, but the footage is certainly there as a deleted scene. Yeah, so that's all I can think of. Prelude, we used Lammies for the end pubs fight sequence. So not only you're using locations that you can get as well, because if you're shooting short films and films with very, very, very small budgets and things like that, it's hard to be able to afford these types of things. So you have to rely on a lot of people you know, a lot of friends, and goodwill of others giving you locations to use. So as well as, some special locations and locations we could get. Number 8, will time travel be explained? This question, it's an interesting one. Are we looking at time travel, or are we looking at different universes? Are we looking at parallel universes? Are we looking at both? We're really going into energy, frequency and vibration, and the fact that everything is energy. We're energy, the space between the space is energy. It's all vibrating at a frequency, and it's touched on in infinite ways. At first we start to talk about being able to see the color spectrum, and it deepens in the third film when John Carpenter is talking about not knowing the energetic effects that things having on things that have on us around us, and it's been a really fascinating part of the training, and picking up on the feeling of what's going on and all those types of things, dealing with the Kukan, the void, and the energy of the encounter and the intention and all of that stuff. So I think energy, frequency and vibration is certainly a huge part of the Ninja universe, as is Life Force, the group that Reeve worked for, and we'll be going into those topics in interesting ways in the next few films. Because they're deep topics, you kind of have to step up to them, and as I found with The Immovable Heart, if you're overloading people in one film, how far can their belief system go? How far before their brain overloads? I think we've all gone through brain fatigue and overload and things like that before. So it will be explained in greater ways, yes. How many movies did you want in the universe? Okay. Infinite, many. As long as it feels like there's a message or a story to tell or something to share that could be of interest to people and maybe help people, we would like to keep making more films. Any hints about the next film? The next film at this stage is called Ninja Reckoning. It is a feature film. It is following a more action orientated path, whereas each film, the theme and the kind of dictates what and how a film is represented or how it is shown. Hopefully each film, whilst adding on to the series, can be perhaps its own standalone film. You're going to find a very dark, a very brutal, a very fighting, action-focused feature film for the next one. It involves the Nightingale, it involves really pushing people to their limits. So yeah, there's your inside scoop and hints for that one.